So, we're back again with another Top 10. It's been a while. I think I missed like a week, maybe two. I don't know. This one's also already going up at a time that's going to be a little bit later. I'm kind of trying to feel out the best time for these videos. It'll actually be a 12-hour difference, I think, compared to the usual timing of these videos. But who knows? Maybe more people will see it, maybe more people won't. But either way, I want to get into what I mean by this title. It is essentially a list of the Pokemon that I think really don't need to exist. And they could not exist for a number of reasons. It could be because I think I hate them. Because they're bad Pokemon and they suck and they need to get, thrown into a pit of Tataris and die. Or it could just be like a poor concept or a bad design or some other combination of things that makes it just, subpar in comparison. But you'll all see exactly what I mean as we go through all the entries here. And I explain what I mean, why they're at this rank, yada 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 yada. And I figured this is a perfect thing to post on Valentine's Day, considering, I don't know. It's not like I'm in a romantic relationship with anyone, so... Yeah, I bought flowers for my mother and candy for my father. That's all that matters. That's all that matters to me right now. But who knows? Maybe I'll find a Valentine somewhere. Definitely not among these Pokemon, though. Those ones are gonna be deleted. Nah. You'll have to check out the top 10 Pokemon I date if you want to see my Valentines. Okay. Let's just start. Okay. Number 10 is... Nope, that's the wrong button. Oh, that's right. I need to remove a few things. I am intelligent. I know what I'm doing. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I had the wrong thing. Let's clear out the Jeremys in the 10th spot. Bam! Alright. Alolan, Diglett, and Alolan Dugtrio. Now, it's not because I hate Diglett or Dugtrio at all. And, their inspiration for being ground steel type, the whole, volcanic string thing. I think it's called, Pele's hair. I don't know. But the thing is, I don't like Alolan Dugtrio. I don't like the hair. The hair looks really, really stupid. When you have, real hair on a Pokemon, it looks really dumb. That's why Bouffalante's kinda stupid. It's just wearing an afro. And, who brushes Dugtrio's hair? Who keeps that hair in a bowl cut? I don't know. This thing has more questions than literally anything, and it just irks me to look at it. I don't necessarily hate it, and the inspiration is there. The inspiration kind of makes sense, which is why it's so low. But they really could have done something better with this concept. In my opinion, if you wanted to make a ground steel Diglett Dugtrio, you could have probably done so many more things. Maybe looked at different kind of moles, or maybe something that digs its way into metal. I don't know. There just could have been a dozen different ways they could have done something like this and given us a different form for Diglett that gives it a cool new thing to do. Or maybe better, just evolve Alolan Diglett into something that isn't a three-headed Dugtrio with hair. Okay. Let's just go to number 9. And that is Jeremy's. Out of the way, please. Blam! Patrat and Watchog. Do I even need to mention these two? I mean, they gotta be one of the most forgettable early game mammals. I guess we have to call them. They're not all rodents anymore. And, like, I think out of all of them, they have the most bland design. They're just the animal. There's nothing really interesting about them. Patrat's definitely better than Watchog. Like, those eyes are kind of okay. They're a little unsettling, but it still doesn't really make it look like more than an animal. It's just an animal. And then it just is wearing a traffic vest. Like some sort of cross guard. I don't know. It's a design that's just really, really dumb. I mean, you could say something like Rattata and Raticate are just rats, but their simplicity kind of makes them good? And it's just not the same with Patrat and Watchog. Anytime I look at them, I'm just like, okay, yeah, that exists. It's really boring in my expert opinion. It's just extremely, extremely boring. And, I guess that's technically fine, but aside from the boring factor, there's not really too much to hate on these. And if they had to make like a Pokemon based on, what's the word, prairie dogs and groundhogs or whatever, if they had to make a Pokemon based on the two, or on the creatures here, then sure, that's a way they could have done it. It's just, like I said with Alolan Diglett and Alolan Dugtrio, it's just not interesting. It doesn't make me want to have them on my party. So let's move on to 8. Bam! Volcanion. This is, I believe, the only mythical that I put on the list. And it's because, I kind of forget that Volcanion exists. Like, all the time. All the time. I don't even know if the thing had an event where you could get it. I think it had a movie, but I never watched it, and I never cared to watch it. And it's not like it was talked about as much as, say, like the Hoopa movie. Even though the Hoopa movie was bad, from what I heard. That's another one that I just didn't see. Mostly because I didn't feel like listening to Hoopa talk forever. Because, it's really difficult to pull off a talking Pokemon main character. It's just, they've got to not be irritating. We're not going for like a cheap Disney princess sidekick or something like that. We need an actual character that can do stuff, and Volcanion just feels like it doesn't even exist. Volcanion just feels like a dream. And if you removed Volcanion, it would change literally nothing. Which is why it's, kind of lower on the list compared to everything else. But, I also can't really think of a thing to replace it with. Which is, again, why it's also lower on the list. If I have better ideas, then they're significantly higher on the list. Just because of that whole thing. If I want to delete it, I mean, I guess there's the fact that Kalos just didn't have much to begin with. Maybe that's why I'm a little hard on Volcanion. It had, like 70 new Pokemon, and it still spent some of their slots on duds like Volcanion. Whatever. We'll move on to 7. Jeremy's, get the hell out of there. Bam! Azurill. So, I think you'll know from the baby challenge with the greatest dad to ever dad. I think you'll know that I actually like the baby Pokemon. I think a great deal of them are fun and interesting. But in order to be a good baby Pokemon, in my opinion, the baby Pokemon has to have access to something that the originals don't. Look at something like Pichu. Originally, Pichu was the only way to get Volt Tackle and I think Nasty Plot. Something to that effect. There was a few moves that only the baby form was able to learn, and then you could transfer them over when you evolved them. And that was interesting. It gave you a reason to want the baby outside of Dex completion. And now that I look at Azurill Azurill really doesn't have anything that Marill and Azumarill don't already have. I legitimately went back and checked. Azurill does not learn anything that its other forms don't already learn. It also stops learning moves in Scarlet and Violet at like level 15, which is just really obnoxious. It's basically saying that Azurill is not a Pokemon meant to be used above that level, which is very unsatisfying. I'm also pretty sure it's got a significantly lower stat pool than a lot of the other, base stats than a lot of the other babies. Because that's the thing. There's a few babies that have solid, like, first form starter level stats, and that's not bad at all. But then there are other ones that are just dog water, and that's kind of where I stand with Azurill. There's almost no reason for Azurill to exist. If we delete Azurill, nothing changes. We don't lose out on any cool new moves. We don't lose out on anything. We just have an extra slot in Generation 3 that we can do whatever we want with. Maybe we can give a baby Pokemon to something else. Like, I don't know, Tropius. I'm sure Tropius could enjoy a baby Pokemon. Earlier way to get a Tropius. Or maybe even Absol. Absol could have had a baby Pokemon. That could have been cool. That could have been really cool. Let's take a look at number 6 then. Bram! Bruxish. So this one is here for an entirely different reason. It's just ugly. Every time I look at it, I get a little uncomfortable. And like, I guess that means it's kind of doing its job. It's supposed to be unsettling with those giant teeth and the weird psychedelic color scheme. So like, I can kind of respect it for that. And maybe it's like the only way to do a Huma Huma Nuka Nuka Apawa or something like that. I don't even know what the fish is that it's supposed to be a Pokemon of, but just at the same time, I feel like you could remove it entirely and nothing would change. I mean, I think it had a signature move back in Alola, but that's not a signature move anymore. And maybe it had a signature ability. I think Dazzling might have been a signature ability. But it's still just, I don't even think it fills a particularly unique niche in competitive. And I don't even really care about competitive, even if it did. So, like, I guess if you removed Bruxish, it might make a few people mad, but I don't know. It annoys me a little bit more than the other Pokemon I've so far revealed on this list. But I would put it pretty close to Azurill. Like, 6 or 7 could have been flipped, honestly. But I think middle of the pack is pretty safe for Bruxish in terms of my feelings on it and how it's just kind of extremely mid and really weird design-wise. I don't really have too much to say about it. I just think that if it was yeeted out of the stratosphere, that no one would care, and we would maybe have something more interesting, a cooler fish. Let's take a look at number 5, then. Jeremy's Kindly Get Out of the Way. Wha-bam! Do I even need to talk about male and female and pheasant? We talked about disappointing designs when we were talking about Patrat and Wachog, right? And I think overall, despite pretty much every single regional bird being kind of underwhelming in its design, it's just a bird. Especially the earlier forms, they only really get more interesting in their final stage. But the thing about Pheasant, and in both its male and female form, it's just literally the bird. There's almost nothing supernatural about it, and I guess sure, it's normal type, it doesn't need to be supernatural, but it's not even mildly interesting, it's just a bird. And you could say that about Pidgeot and Noctowl, I guess, but I still put Pidgeot and Noctowl on my team. I mean, Pidgeot's the OG, so we gotta give it a little bit of respect for that, but even if it is just a bird, literally just a fancy bird, it's still has, some character to it. Female Unpheasant has no character, and male Unpheasant's character is, it's in your face, fancy. And even that fancy is kind of gaudy. It's not really good. And, looking at all the other regional birds, they've got something that makes them exciting. They have an additional type, or access to cool moves, or literally anything. And I mean, after Unpheasant, they started actually doing something interesting with regional birds. Kind of. Like, Gen 6, we got Talonflame. It's fire type, not normal flying. Gen 7, we got Toucanon. It has a signature move, and it's different. It's not just a toucan. It's a toucan that shoots cannons, or cannonballs. If it shot cannons, it would be an entirely different kind of creature. And of course, Gen 8 and Gen 9. Gen 8, we have the steel-type bird, Corviknight, and also the first just pure flying regional bird before it changes into a steel type. And then we have a flying electric type in Kilowattrel and Wattrel. That is assuming you count them as the regional bird. I like to consider them the regional bird. Some might consider Flamigo the regional bird because it's earlier, but it doesn't evolve, so I don't really care. I consider it the early game beat stick, the strong single stage Pokemon you can catch relatively early on that you use to swat people. You could literally wield a Flamigo as a weapon. But we're not talking about Flamigo. We're talking about really obnoxious, boring birds. I don't normally ditch my flyer towards the end of the game. I normally kept my flyer with me through any Gen 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 game, even Gen 6 game that I played. Unpheasant was the only flyer that I caught on purpose that I then promptly kicked out of the party as soon as I had another option. I don't normally do that. So I think that it only adds to just how boring and stupid this particular Pokemon is. They could have done any other design, and it would have been better than this. I just legitimately have nothing more to say about Unpheasant. It's extremely boring, it's super mid, and if they vanished off the face of the earth, I wouldn't care. Number 4, Jeremy's kindly get out of the way, Toxel. So you know how I talked about babies earlier? And how I like when they give, interesting moves, or they have something to offer for its future stages. Whether it's obtaining it early, or getting access to moves they normally wouldn't. Toxel doesn't fall into that particular column. Toxel falls into something more like Wynot. And even then, Wynot still provided an extra move to Wobbuffet, but that's besides the point. Toxel just has no level up moves. Every move that it gets at level 1, which means it never gets stronger or more interesting unless you're willing to spend TMs on it. And even then, it can't learn anything decent. I think most of the TMs Toxel can learn are just the TMs that everyone can learn, which is so stupid. Like, I'm gonna look this up. I'm gonna look this up right now. I'm gonna pull up Toxel, and I want to know whether this thing gets any electric moves by... Oh, no, it doesn't. It gets no electric moves by TM. It's stuck with Nuzzle for its entire life. At least it learns, 2 poison-type moves in Belch and Acid. Belch is, a bad move, and Acid is weak. It just frustrates me. It doesn't exist as a Pokemon on its own. It exists to make Toxtricity more difficult to get. And that infuriates me. Toxtricity would be better off as a single-stage Pokemon than it would be having Toxel. And it's like the only baby they've added after Gen 4, or something like that. I think it, yeah, it's the only baby Pokemon they added to Gen 8, and it is useless. It's Magikarp levels of bad. I don't like it. I think they should remove it, or they should have given it a more interesting moveset, access to more interesting things. Even Tyrogue, which has less moves than Toxel in its learn set, can learn a lot more interesting TMs. So, yeah. Toxel gets no respect from me. Toxel is going to go directly into the shredder at every opportunity I have for it. Number 3, Scovillain. Scovillain is probably the biggest disappointment after like a massive buildup. Everyone has wanted a fire, grass, pepper Pokemon. Legitimately, like every single person in the world has wanted a design like this, or a species like this. But this design looks incomplete as fuck. This looks like a mid-stage Pokemon, not a 3-stage. Or not a final stage. I don't know, maybe they're gonna evolve it in another generation, but looking at it right now, it doesn't even look like a Pokemon, in all honesty. It looks like something you'd encounter in a JRPG. It looks like an enemy that is going to try to lock you in vines and shoot you with fire, and then you cut its heads off and get like 10 gold out of it or something. I don't know. It's just baffling how dumb it looks. And I guess I don't think Capsicid is that great of a design either. It just kind of looks like a creepy baby pepper thing. But I mean, I guess that's a way to start it. I don't necessarily hate Capsicid, I just don't really care about Capsicid. And that's what makes Scovillain worse. I actively do not care and do not like Scovillain. And it should be yeeted off the face of the earth, or it should at least evolve again. I would not hate Scovillain nearly as much if it evolved again. So get on it, Game Freak. Fix it like you did Diplin. Number 2, Pawmi. Now I get it. Pawmi's supposed to be a Pichu, with Pawmo being the Pikachu and Pawmot being the Raichu. But then why? Of all things you could do you make Pawmo and Pawmi look nearly fucking identical? Pawmo to Pawmot, that's at least a bigger change. Change of hairstyle, gets bigger. It's cooler, it's more interesting. Slightly. Pawmi, on the other hand, literally just stands up, and I think its fur gets a slightly lighter color. That's not nearly as much of any other change. It doesn't feel like it got older. It just feels like it stood up and got a reverse tan or something. Looking at Pichu to Pikachu, the ears change, the proportions change. A lot of it gets different. They're clearly different enough Pokemon to warrant an evolution. Pawmi to Pawmo does not feel like an evolution at all. And I want to like Pawmi. That's the most disappointing part. Because Pawmot is really cool. I didn't immediately think Pawmot was all that cool, but after the electric challenge, I have to give it some respect. It's pretty darn good and interesting with the whole like revival blessing thing, because it's got like defibrillator pad hands. But Pawmi is just ugh. It would have been better if it was just Pawmot to Pawmo, or Pawmo to Pawmot, or like at least make it different. At least make more of a change, please. Okay. Now let's get to the first one. Oh, this one irritates me beyond all extents of the word. Okay. Jeremy's, kindly step away. Bam. Sneasler. Alright. We've talked about disappointing. We've talked about unnecessary. We've talked about bad designs. We've talked about stupid. And Sneasler is all of that. Let's start with the name. It's Sneasler. It's like Sneasel, but more. Which is really fucking dumb. I mean, poison fighting is cool. The move Dire Claw is fucking cool. But you literally just took a Sneasel and stretched it. It's so fucking stupid. It's worse than Dunsparce. And you can't get much worse than Dunsparce. I don't even hate Dunsparce. It's kind of a good joke. But Sneasler is even worse. Sneasler is just pure stupid on stupid. It's like someone took someone who was already hit by the stupid stick and then beat them senseless with it until they were within an inch of their life. I hate Sneasler with a passion. And, like, they didn't even need to change it. Regular Sneasel is already in Sinnoh. Why did they need to make a different breed of Sneasel? The Dex entries do nothing. The Dex entries just say that a different environment changes Sneasel. It gives no specifics. It would have been better just to give it another Weavile. Like, if you took a Weavile and palette swapped it, it would look better than Sneasler. 100%. I remember when the leaks came out, and people thought that this was like a different form of Nuzleaf, maybe. That would have been better. Different form of Nuzleaf, different evolution of Nuzleaf. That would have been better. 100% better. So, yeah. I think that's all I have to say about Sneasler, so that means we got the entire list of all the Pokemon I think that should be deleted off the face of the earth. I like opinions. Opinions are nice. Please comment your own opinions. Am I completely deranged and psychopathic for putting some of these Pokemon on the list? Are you a Palmy stan that thinks I am completely in the wrong? Go yell at me. Hate me for everything that I do. Please, it fuels me. If you love Bruxish, go to hell. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. If any of these Pokemon on the list are ones that you genuinely love, more power to you. I don't. I'm disappointed in pretty much every single one of these, in some degree or not, and of all of these 10 Pokemon, give or take more if we're talking about full evolutionary lines, there's just so many better ways they could have done it. Ah, God, it's disappointing. And that sounds like a perfect note to end the video on. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody!